Now the saying is, show me your phone and I'll tell you what you value. And finally I said, I can't do this anymore. And he looked at me like, oh, can't do what? What? Like, what do you, like, be married? Like, what are you talking about? I can't sit in silence. Like, because perspective is the way that we interpret life. It's shaped by your past. It's shaped by your pain. It's shaped by your upbringing. It's shaped by your wounds.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grace Every Day, a podcast for Christian wives of blue-collar guys. I'm so excited about today's episode because joining me today is a special guest and friend, Tecia Janes. Tecia has been teaching and leading women in ministry for 25 years, and she is the founder of Choosing Him Biblical Counseling and Ministry. Tecia is passionate about equipping women with the Word of God, guiding them to a personal and contagious faith. Tecia's desire is to let people share their story, find purpose through it, and find Jesus in it. Tecia, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, it's so wonderful for being here. Thank you, Ria, for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. You have been a guest on the podcast, on my other podcast, but it's been a long time. You might remember. It's been a long time.
It's been a hot minute.
So I think, one of the things that I have been really interested to see is as you have, gotten more along the journey with choosing him, I can just see just a spiritual maturity in you. And I love that. So I'm super excited to hear what we dive into today because, even though you were on my podcast like a long time ago, I know that you've been growing and that's exciting. Yeah. So super excited to dig in. But before we go there, tell everyone listening just a little bit about you, your family, or anything you want to share there.
Oh, wow. Well, a lot has happened personally in my family. My son got married. Well, it's been 5 years ago. I think I was with you before then, but 5 years ago. And then that was, COVID. COVID. And then we lost my mom shortly after that. So that was super hard. But then my son and daughter-in-law gave us a granddaughter who has been the joy of everyone in our family. She is just so fun and spunky and so much. I'm her yaya, and and I love that. It is so much fun. So then my daughter graduated college last year and got married December 21st. And I told her, thank you very much, because there's nothing going on that week. So that was really easy.
Could you pick a different day, please?
Right. I know. But they were working on a school calendar. So, you'll have 2 weeks of vacation. Her husband now is graduating in May, and then he's going to med school. So that learning to adjust without having kids in the house has been really kind of cool, like in a weird way. But you said, talking about maturity, is like, I understand so much more when my clients come and I'm trying to counsel them through things and they talk about empty nesting and I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it now. I thought I understood it, but now I really do understand it. So it's different and it's beautiful all in the same way.
Yeah, I love that because it's just such a reminder, right, of the seasons of life and how the seasons do change. And with it, we hopefully learn to change as well.
Even last night, my husband and I were having the conversation. He asked me, do you want to go out for Valentine's Day to a nice place? And I looked at him, I said, it's usually us every night anyway. And Valentine's Day doesn't make it more special to me than every night. Every night that we get to go out is special to me. And I said, it's kind of fun right now because we're not the people we were when we got married. So going back, because I'm doing some studies now on premarital counseling and marriage counseling. And so I'm literally diving deep into the first year of marriage and all the struggles that you have to learn about each other. And I said, what's really cool with my husband and I this season, the first year without our kids, so I feel like we need to go back to premarital counseling. Like we need to look at what the struggles are. And that includes family and boundaries and just communication styles and things like that. if we could go back to that, like we're learning each other all over again.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that. And the for those listening, some of them know that Mac and I live, work, and travel together. And so it's interesting when you talk about communication styles, because Mac and I have completely different communication styles. And sometimes that just can cause all kind of issues that shouldn't be issues, but it's just like, oh wow. I mean, you do speak a different language than I do.
Very much so. And we have to, I think in one of my studies, they use the word coach, that women have to coach their husbands and how to communicate that way. Like,
Mm.
I remember just to tell a story, and I think my husband's okay with this, but the first week, I guess, my husband's super quiet. And as you can tell, I'm very much an extrovert. I don't have any problem talking. And dinner times, I love to sit on the table and talk. So like the second, third week after the kids were gone and we're sitting at the table and he's just eating his dinner. And I'm sitting there and like every second that goes by, I'm like getting more angry and angry. And finally I said, I can't do this anymore. And he looked at me like, oh, we can't do what? What? Like, what do you like? Be married? Like, what are you talking about? I said, I can't sit in silence. Like, we have to talk. He was like, okay, what do you want to talk about? So we had to learn real quick how to communicate. What was, what did we each need? And so yeah, we kind of
I'm laughing because that is that can be us. It's the other way around. I'm a little more of the quiet one and he is a little more of the talker. But yeah, I can so relate.
yeah, they're so different.
Uh,
So,
well, so tell us a little bit more about choosing him and
mhm.
kind of how and what you do, because I love to hear about your passion for helping women. And I think you said it, or I said it in your bio, your introduction, with their story, but then finding Jesus in it, and
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yes. So Choosing Him started as a women's ministry, and it started as you and I when we first connected. Gosh, almost 10 years ago. Um, just learning our stories and learning that there is purpose in the stories and the power that comes from sharing it and the encouragement that it provides other people. And so that's kind of how our phrase, our vision statement is: connecting women with Jesus, God's word, and each other. And
Mm,
we that combination we really believe brings purpose to our stories when it's in that order. Um, so we started doing that. We also do events called the Gathering. And in those gatherings, we have a time of testimony where a person probably has never shared their testimony publicly before. We work with them for like 6 months, honing it and really find. Sometimes they haven't even really sat down to see God in their own story. So
mm,
those to me have been some of the most joy-filled communications, is when you're sitting and you're like, oh my goodness, I can see God in this aspect and this aspect in your story. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, I missed that before. And then it changes their whole outlook. But in those gatherings that we have, when you hear somebody else's story, um, you can see, sometimes you can see God in it. Um, Sometimes it can be like a mirror image of your own story, and it can bring a lot of
mm,
pain. It can take off band-aids that you have probably put over wounds that were infected, that were not
mm,
even cleaned out before, that created some really deep scars. And we realized we really were struggling on. We didn't want to open up these wounds and then be like, okay, it was a fun night. Come back next time, and walk out.
sure.
That was creating more harm than good. So what we were challenged with some outside counsel, was that we needed a place for these women to land. And
Mhm,
that was what perpetuated us opening a biblical counseling center in 2023. And it has been just an incredible blessing. We have 4 counselors here on staff now, and we do marriage counseling. We see men, women, and teens. And that has just been a wonderful place to partner with people as they go through their journey and their stories. And most people just
mhm,
need somebody to walk beside them and point them to the truths that they probably knew but forgot. And that's
mm,
really what we find the most of it. It's just not that we're here with all the answers. We're just going to remind you of the truth that God has already said, and you probably have heard
mm.
before.
Yeah, that's it's profound, right? It's the scriptures that we learned at some point, but sometimes it's just we need that reminder, and that sometimes the person to tie the scripture to the application of what it looks like today. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was teaching a group to this morning, a class, and I was like, life is hard. Like we all need encouragement and we all need someone to walk beside us at times, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And it,
It's just being willing to be vulnerable to say, "Hey, I'm ready for some help."
yeah. Yeah. And mental health is such a huge thing. Especially after COVID, we realized how important connection is, how much having someone there to even talk through life and not to be isolated. Um, Physically, we went through that with COVID, but understanding that from a psychology standpoint too, and spiritual, how God created us to be in connection with each other and community, but also with Him. Um, I think some of our generation has never known anything but isolation. So we're
Yeah.
having to reintroduce that of, how did God, as the creator of the universe, design us in relationship with each other and with Him?
Mm. Yeah, we could probably spend a whole side podcast talking about the implications I think that COVID is going to have on society, and
Yeah.
a generation of people who these days are very connected socially. They're connected to their phone, but not necessarily to
Yeah.
one another.
Mhm. They don't know what it's like to sit in a room and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Everything's through their phone, social media, texting.
Mhm.
So it's awkward. But yeah. So that's one of the things that we talked about even in our gathering this past month. The the theme was abundant living. And I was
Mm.
interesting. Okay. So I was like, God, I just kept praying, what does that look like? And I felt like first of all, I felt that was a very churchy word. And it is.
Abundant living.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is something Jesus said. I have come that they might have a lot, have life and have it to its abundance. But if you're not in church, that doesn't abundant living just sounds like a catchphrase.
Mm.
And so I was like, what does that look like? And so there were a couple of things, if you don't mind, I'll just share, I'll lay
No,
it
please.
back, okay. That God just kind of really stuck out to me in this teaching time. But one was perspective and how our perspective, well, here was the phrase, where you stand determines what you see. And we've all heard the story about when there's a car accident and you've got four people on four different corners. They're all going to tell you four different things from
Mhm.
their perspective of what they saw, right? Now, are they all wrong? No, they're all right. But they're based on where they were standing, their angle, and also their experiences prior to that. They're going to be looking for things and seeing different things. If I
Mhm.
was standing on that corner and I had just had a bad accident myself, I'm going to stand there with emotions and fears already. I'm going to be looking for different things than the person next to me is going to be looking for. Um, where I stand determines what I see. And I think that is so important, not just for us, but to realize the person that you're working with, the person that you're struggling with, the person that you identify very differently from your moral standards, even that they're seeing things from where they are standing. Um, just not to say everything is okay, that every perspective is okay. That's not what I'm saying. But just to bring us kind of on the same level so that conversations can even begin to happen is
Mhm.
so important and something we have really lost in our culture right now. Um, because perspective is the way that we interpret life.
Mm.
It's shaped by your past, it's shaped by your pain, it's shaped by your upbringing, it's shaped by your wounds, your disappointments, and your choices. And I love this phrase is that you don't just see life, that you interpret it.
Mm. How true. Mm.
Because I laugh with my sisters. I have two younger sisters, and you can put all three of us in a room and we can start recounting our memories of our childhood memories and just things that we hold close. And you can just see our faces start to, our grim under our eyes going, what are you talking about? That is not how that happened. Oh, yes, it is exactly how that happened. And you get the little bickering if you're like, okay, do we have the same parents? You have those conversations. Um, but they were totally different perspectives. It's because I didn't just experience it, I filtered it. My
Mm.
personality filters it differently than my sisters, even though the scenario was exactly the same. Same parents, they said the same thing, they responded the
Mhm.
same way, but I filtered it. And I know for myself, my insecurities and who I was, and my desire as a firstborn, first granddaughter to,
Mm.
I don't want to say perfect, but to always feel like I had to do absolutely best with everything that I did. My filter was often very different from my younger sisters. Um, you know, in counseling, we learned that you don't just see life as it is, that we see life as we are.
Mhm.
And so when we're talking about vision and we're talking about things that we see, um, it's important to understand that while pain can color our vision, fear, it can narrow our vision. Trauma can even
Mhm.
distort our vision. And the cool thing about faith is it can expand our vision into ways and see things that we didn't know were even there.
Mm.
One of the things, this just was something I was teaching. It was really, really stuck out to me. But if you've been betrayed, you don't just see people, you scan them first.
Mm.
Response. If you've been abandoned, you don't just automatically love people, you brace.
Mm. Yeah.
If you've been disappointed, you don't just hope, you hesitate first.
Mhm.
They're wounds. They're wounds of the heart, and those wounds solicit certain responses. They're different perspectives than somebody else standing even next to me who has gone through different things would interpret life.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was just the perspective was just really very enlightening for me. Um, because the abundant life, when we look at what do I see, the important question is to ask is where is God in what I see?
Mm.
Because our shift is always to move from me and my story to where is God not only in this story, but what does he want to do in this story and how can he use me in it? We live in a world that's very focused on self help.
Mhm.
It's all about, even when we share our stories, which are really important, but if they're still all about us, we're still missing the point.
Right.
And I don't know
Right.
that we are taught very often that while our story is important and we are important to God 100%, our goal should always be to push the glory back to God.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Mac and I say it starts with me, but it's not about me.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and then sometimes that's hard. I had a group of teens the other day, a couple weeks ago, and they were um, some of them might be one day interested in sharing their stories. They're maybe not there yet, but they were just asking questions about, sharing a story of adversity and that kind of thing. And I'm like, my greatest advice to them was if you're sharing because you haven't healed yet, that's not the right time and place to be sharing a story
Right,
publicly. So
right,
because then it's about you, and that you might need to share or talk with someone or get a counselor or someone, a therapist that can help you walk through that. But that's not the best way to start sharing publicly, and that everyone gets there in different times. But I think you've hit the nail on the head with that.
yeah. I've watched even my own story shift over the years from when I first started sharing my testimony in this story, um, and now I love being able to share and teach without even sharing anything about my own life, like that,
Mhm.
because God gets all the glory. It really helps me to walk around or to see, man, God, like you're so good, and while you can use us, you don't need us. And I think that
Mm.
that's important. Like you use me, you created me, you love me, but you don't necessarily need me.
Mm.
And oftentimes, I want my story is what God needs in order for people to see God. It's not
Oh,
that
wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's and for those who are listening, I will drop the link to Tecia's last time she was on my podcast, and she shares a little bit there about her testimony there. And you share in a little bit in some of your books as well.
I do. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did write a book called Choices, and that really, you and I connected really quick on that about, our choices are ours to make. And God has called us and given us the ability to make choices, whether we choose to obey or we choose to do it our own way. They have vastly different endings. But yeah, it's a Bible study. We do have videos now that go around with it. So if you buy the
Wow.
study, you can email us at the website, choosingHim.org, and we can give you the links to the videos that go along with them. Or if you don't want to do the study and you just want to watch the videos, that's fine too. Just go ahead and email us. They're free. We can get them to you. But,
Love that.
yeah. So, well, after moving from like perspective is how we see life, the next question I think that's super important for us to move to is, what do we build our life around? Because where you stand determines what you see, and what comes first directs everything else.
Mm.
So we were talking earlier when I said, used to be, tell me, let me see your checkbook and I'll tell you what you value, right?
Yeah.
Well, our kids don't even know what a checkbook is. But now the saying is, show me your phone and I'll tell you what you value. And it will show
Mm.
you what apps are there, how much time you spend on. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. So if you haven't done this checkup, ladies, have somebody look at your phone, and it really will it'll let you know a lot. But the phone battery test is really cool because, yes, I'm stepping on all of my toes too on this, but it will tell me my priorities. It'll tell me what apps I've been on, whether how long I've been on Facebook, or how long I've been Googling this, or maps, or checking my kids' locations, like whatever it is. When the battery will tell me how much time is spent on each of those. And our life is often the same way, that whatever I value most takes up the most time.
Mm.
And
So
so,
true.
yeah, you may not be able to list what you value in the moment, but your life already knows them. Your calendar already knows what you value. Your spending knows what you value.
Mm.
Even our stress and our exhaustion shows what we value. Um, we can all say certain things are priorities, like our health and our faith and our families. But does the rest of our life show that and prove that, or are they just words? So,
Mm. I don't think I've ever thought about that analogy that you just said about the analogy of a phone battery, right? What we're spending time in on our phone is draining that phone battery, but what we can spend time on our life is taking some of our emotional energy too. So love that. That's yeah, what's draining our energy. And I mean, some of it we're spending in a good way, and that's good, but it takes energy to do everything we
it
do.
does. It does. And it's not that being on our phones is sinful, and not everything that we do is sinful. And I want to be clear about that we're not legalistic in the way that, we're not sitting in our chair with our Bible 24/7. And if I don't pray every morning, then I'm sinning. Like, those are good disciplines that we need to know to build our relationship with Christ. But there's a lot of things that I can do that are good, that were probably not just best. And
Mm.
that's learning to decipher that, because what comes first in my life always wins. Always. Whether it's working too much, I'm guilty of that. So, I mean, I say this is convicting. Do I go home and stop at 5 o'clock? Or, am I calling saying, oh, I got to finish one more module in this class I'm taking. I'll be home at 8.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a choice I've made. Ironically, I'm studying on marriage. I was a little convicted by that last night, that I stayed late to work to 8 o'clock and missed the time with my husband. But whatever comes first in our life wins. It takes priority over our minds and over our hearts, and our actions. So that's just important. If I want to say that God is first in my life, and that He's not just getting the leftovers, leftover
Mm.
time, leftover energy, leftover attention, because we don't need better intentions. We need better alignment.
Mm. Yeah, they're all things we intend to do, right? We have good intentions, but
Yes. Yes.
that's not making change.
No, it's not. And yeah, so being aligned with knowing God's word. And that's
Mm.
the thing, is I want to really encourage women that are on here, because if we don't know God's word, we're not going to get it right. And even if we do, we're not going to get it right 100%. But our alignment is a lot more in line with God and with our purpose when we're seeking and we're spending time with Him. You can't align with something you don't understand or know.
Very true. Very true. And the closer we are getting in alignment, the easier. It's like when a car is out of alignment, right? You're driving down the road, your car's not in alignment. It's an uncomfortable ride at best.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just a good reminder of that. So much good. So I wasn't able to go to your most recent gathering, but it sounds like a really incredible, powerful event.
It was. Yeah, from perspective to priorities, I tell you the number one question I hear in the counseling room is, what is my purpose?
Mm.
Whether it's a change of seasons, empty nesters, or loss of a parent, of a friendship that's died, of a loss of a job, whatever it is, I get this question asked more than any other question is, I don't know my purpose. What's my purpose? And I love that because purpose is not something that I live out when my heart is aligned. Purpose allows you to get where you were meant to go. And so I think a lot of
Tell me more about that.
Okay, so when we understand our perspectives and what we're bringing to the table to understand a situation, and we understand what our priorities should be, even if they're not, we have a goal to get there. That when God is first in our life and our priority, purpose follows, because we were created with purpose by God. So when our priority is Him above all else, we find purpose because we begin to see Him use us. We begin to see Him and the things that we didn't see before. And I think God desperately wants to flip our narrative from where do I belong to who do I belong to? Because all our women that I see, and even men, but mostly women that I see, and they're asking, what is my purpose and where do I belong? We don't realize that purpose flows from belonging.
Oh, that's powerful.
It is, because we think about even from childhood, if you don't feel like you belong in that group that you want to be in, you feel rejected, you feel less than. When you go to college and you want to be in, whether it's a sorority or fraternity or whatever group, and you don't make it in there, you feel rejected, you feel less than, because your standard has become, where do I belong? Then you switch it, which I think God desperately wants to flip our narrative to say, who do you belong to? It really causes us, if we're really honest, if it's not God, then we're always seeking, and we're not going to ever find that place where we truly belong or who we belong to. Purpose can also follow pain. It can flow from our pain. And you've lived this. I've lived this in different ways, but when you look back in your pain, you're like, okay, God, I've seen how you have used that. And we begin to shift from that why question to, I may not ever understand, but I know that you can use it and you can rest in that.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest thing, right? Is God doesn't cause the pain in our lives, but He can use it. But the hardest thing is we don't always understand. Sometimes we understand later down the road in the journey. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't ever understand. Because
and we're not ever be given that insight until we get to heaven.
Yeah. And that's the hard part, because it opens the door for doubt to creep in, doubting God, right? And it shouldn't, but we are human. But like you said, our perspective, right, is if we don't have the perspective that God does, we can't see it from that level sometimes. And that's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
But that's where faith comes in, is just saying, I don't always know why, but I know He works it for our good.
Yes. When we learn to rest, we learn to soak up all that Jesus is. We begin to shift our focus from our perspective and what I know to a kingdom perspective. That gives you purpose, meaning I'm learning to see something that I know God is working, and I'm going to trust Him, but I've got a purpose in this now. And purpose doesn't remove pain, but it sure can give it meaning.
I'll have to sit with that for a minute. That's a good quote. Say that one more time.
Purpose doesn't remove pain, it gives it meaning.
Wow. Doesn't remove pain, it gives it meaning. Mm, love
Yeah.
that.
And I mentioned earlier something about how God wants to flip the narrative. And if I can geek out just a minute on some of
Please.
the cultural backgrounds that I love so much in the Bible. But a familiar story that a lot of us know is the story of Mary and Martha. And where Jesus goes, they were like family to him, right? And he goes
Yeah.
and has dinner, and all of a sudden we have this story where poor Martha gets just she gets the bad rap all the time about working in the kitchen and fussing about Mary sitting with Jesus. And I love the story so much because it shows us the sibling rivalry of, two
Mm,
sisters not getting along, like even then, like it's how our lives go. But there's what was something very profound to me that we're talking about Jesus flipping the narrative is during that culture, hospitality and generosity was huge in that
mm,
culture in that time, meaning your whole family's integrity and your character and who you were known by was your generosity to people
mhm,
outside that were coming through. And so for what Martha was doing was culturally 100% expected during that time.
mm,
Her family's reputation depended on her making the food, providing the food, being hospitable, taking care of things. One of the statements they'll make in Jesus in the Middle Eastern Eyes is a great book, a resource if anybody wants to look at it. But if your neighbor's grass was not cut, well, your neighbor doesn't look bad. You do because you didn't go cut it for him.
yeah.
Okay, so that's the culture we're in. And for Mary to be sitting at Jesus' feet was not only just not doing what Martha was doing, it actually bordered on scandalous
Mm,
because that was considered a rabbi, which women should not have been sitting at the feet of a rabbi.
mm,
The wording that is used is somebody as a disciple, not as just listening to a guest. So
mhm,
that was very interesting. So Jesus is taking this whole narrative of women should be working and doing that narrative, and he tells her, Mary or Martha, what Mary has chosen is the best, and it won't be taken from her.
yeah.
Talk about priorities. Our priorities are either going to be what's culturally expected, or they're going to be putting God first. And Mary
Mm,
understood that above all, even going against the culture, but even fighting her sister over this, going up against that, she understood what her priority was, and that was getting to know Jesus, sitting at his feet, learning more about him, even if it was countercultural.
mm. That is, it's powerful. It's hard, right? Because I think as women, I did a recent podcast on self-worth and like why do we do things like put on makeup and have false eyelashes and not that that is bad in and of itself. I'm wearing makeup. Believe me, if I'm doing a podcast, I'm wearing makeup, right? But I sometimes we should question why we're doing the things we're doing because if we feel the need to be cultural acceptable, like if I don't do these things, then I'm not worthy because I
Mhm.
don't fit in with what culture expects. That's the wrong reason for behavior. And I think to your point is Mary was willing to say, yeah, this was not just not popular. This was unheard of for her time for a woman to come and be a disciple, right? It wasn't done. And yet she was willing to say, no, this is where my heart is. And if it's unpopular, then I'm still committed to that. And that's a hard fight. I know I struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard because there's so much noise in our world, so
Mhm.
much noise. And there's so much fighting for our attention and our schedule and our time. And if I'm not intentional of choosing what is best,
Yeah.
then the noise is going to win.
Mm. Hard to do, but it feels so good when we do get in alignment with that.
Yes. Yes. But it is hard. I'm not sitting here saying, y'all need to do all this. Like I'm learning. These are the things God is teaching me every day. He says, deny yourself, pick up your cross and follow me. Well, that's an ongoing minute to minute for me. We're not talking one time in a life or day to day. It's a minute to minute because there's so much pulling from belonging to I don't know. I mean, even just working, you want to do it right. And
Mm,
sometimes I forget it's not my strength, but my priority has got to be God. My purpose will follow from that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We all get it right sometimes. We all get it wrong. And that's okay. We're working towards it.
That's right.
Well, what other words of advice, or what other question I didn't ask that something that you wanted to share?
Oh, goodness. Um, hmm. Just a little cool thing about our gathering, if you don't mind, I'll follow up with
Yeah,
that.
please.
So the gathering was about the abundant life, like I shared, perspective, priority, and purpose. I asked the ladies at the end of the evening, they all had a note card, and I said, I want you to write, what is it that you need to surrender to God? What
Mm,
is the thing that is vying for your time or even creating a struggle?
mm,
With a relationship here or something you're not willing to let go of him or something you let go and then you pull it back again, what is it that you need to surrender? And I said, I surrender what to you tonight? And I was like, fill in that blank, just a word or whatever. And I said, if you've never accepted Jesus in your life, if you've never accepted that he is the Son of God, that he has died on the cross so that your sins would be covered and that you could spend eternity in heaven with him, if you've never taken that step of faith, then tonight would be an incredible night to just write all
mm.
in that blank. Just I surrender all to you. And I would the next so we had like 133 ladies at the altar that night bringing their cards,
Wow.
and so the next morning I'm sitting there on my sofa and I'm going through all the cards and looking at the themes that are placed, and there were 12 cards that said all. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, God, did whether they met you for the first time or whether they saw you for the first time in a very long time, um, it was so powerful to me. But let me tell you, there were 8 cards that actually broke me. And I'll try not to cry now because I was broken for that weekend. I carried those 8 cards around with me, and they were blank. They were blank cards. And I'll
Mm,
tell you what I saw when I had those blank cards, because the ladies did not have to get up. That
right.
meant those 8 ladies stood up with their card. They walked to the altar and they laid a blank card. For whatever reason, they could not even put it into writing.
Mm. You
And
shared just a touch of that, a little bit of that story with me a few weeks ago, and it still caught me. I think it's you can just feel that, right? The hurt that's too big to
yes.
name.
But I thought, what you could not find a better place to lay that hurt, even if you can't
Mm,
find the words. And the Bible tells us that even when we don't have the words, that the Holy Spirit can intercede on our behalf with even groans. And it's okay. And I was so thankful that those women got up and just with the act of being able to say, God, you know what this is, but right now it's too raw for me to even put into words. And I get chills now even saying that because my heart is so burdened and I have prayed so intently over those 8 women. And it's been the coolest process for me too, Ria, because I don't know what their stories are. I don't know who they are. And I
mm,
don't even know what they were struggling with. But to be able to pray over these women, knowing that their perspective is filled with pain, some struggle, their priority has got to shift so that they can be able to identify what their pain is
yeah.
and so that God can give the purpose in it. And it has been the coolest journey for me, praying over those 8. They're actually in my purse right now. I've carried them with me since then,
Mm,
because it's such the beautiful grace of the cross.
yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. So now that we are all now that we're all teary eyed, no, but I just love that because um, you know, maybe it is too big of a hurt to name or to even write down to own, but
Mhm.
they've taken that first step, and that's the powerful first step, right? Just taking that first step and saying, oh, it's there, and that's where healing can begin with God's help. And I love that you're carrying those cards around, praying, because that is such a powerful thing. So love that. So you choosing him has pretty active social media, Facebook. Tell us more about that, where they can follow you, learn about your next gathering, things like that.
Yeah, so we are on in Facebook and Instagram. And actually, Andra has just created us a TikTok account. So I told her, I said,
Wow.
I don't have TikTok, so I guess I have to go sign, like at least like our
Maybe the
page.
future.
That's I'm older, that's not my world. But Andra does some really fun videos. That's the uncut fun stuff if you follow that. But yeah, that's most of all of our stuff is either is put on Facebook. You can also go to our website, and if you subscribe to it, then you'll get the emails of when things are coming up. So right now, actually starting this coming week is our Healing Hearts course that starts. It's a 6-week course that I
Wow.
teach, and it's how to heal the wounds of your heart in a biblical, practical way. And it's an intensive. It's a small group, and it's not fluff. We go deep, fast, and
Mhm.
hard, and but it's probably one of the most powerful things that I've ever been through, and taught. And so that starts next week. We have, I think, 4 slots left. Well, I don't know when this airs, but we keep that on a rotating basis. So
Okay.
please check our website out for the classes. Between that, and we have a caregiver support group. So if you are a caregiver and you need somebody to partner with you in that, that's there. And we also have a divorce class that's just been
Mm.
started by Andra, called Restored. And so that one is coming up too. But yeah, there's lots of resources, and we're continuing to add. I mean, like I said, the gathering, when people bring their pain, it also gives us the specific struggles that people are struggling with. And so when we come back to the office and we're like, okay, let's look at our content of what we're going to address for this year, we go back to those. We look at the themes of what people have. I'll just show you the themes that people put. So like this right here is our pile. This is where people have said, this is where I need help with
Yeah.
whether it's individual counseling, which we do offer here, if you need somebody to walk beside you, or if you want to process it in a small group, we have that to offer as well.
I love that. Tecia, thank you just so much for sharing. And thank you for willing to be the tool in God's hand.
Mm.
Because one of the things I love about you, you said it a couple weeks ago when we met. You said you were grateful, and I want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you were grateful to wake up every morning and think, God has given me the privilege of doing this work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is so powerful, because one, my prayer would be that all of us find that alignment, right, in purpose. But I know it can be heavy work sometimes. It can be, it can be emotional work. And so for you to still wake up with joy and be like, I am excited about this, number one, that tells me you're in the right place. But I'm just grateful for that, because I know when we step into that purpose, God truly can use us. And I think He's using you in great ways.
Well, thank you. That's very encouraging. It's really an honor every day I do when I drive up. I can't believe I get to do this and serve Him in the way that He's called me to do, because it's really is. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Well, for those who are listening, I'm going to drop in the show notes the link to choosinghim.org website. And I'm going to drop also information about Tecia's book. And I promised I would share with you her podcast from before. So if you want to dig in a little bit more. Any last closing thoughts, Tecia, as we wrap up?
No, just thank you for giving me an opportunity to share God's love again. It's who makes me who I am. It's brought purpose through a lot of the pain in my life, and it's always an honor to get to share that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. We are the ones who are grateful. So thank you so much. And everyone will just keep that reminder, right? God's grace is sufficient, and we need it every single day. Until next time.